Okay, so now you've had a bit of a look at Peter paragraphs. So that's point, evidence, technique, explain, and the effect on the reader. We're going to look at how you can use Peter paragraphs in an exam question. So this is taken from one of the sample papers that AQA have sent out to us. And what it's asking us to do is it's asking us to look at how the writer uses language to basically describe the effects of the weather from this passage. And you will get a question very similar to this in the actual exam. So they've given you some bullet points, a bit of guidance here. So you could include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques, and sentence forms. I want to focus a bit here on language features and techniques because that's a real strength of the Peter paragraph structure. It allows you to analyse language features and techniques very well. So the first language feature and technique that I can identify, the first one that jumped out at me, was towards the end of this first paragraph here, where you've got a nice little simile and a bit of personification going on. The whole body of the coach trembled and swayed, rocking between the high wheels like a drunken man. Now I could just say the writer uses simile and give an example of a simile and leave it at that, but I'm not going to get very many marks for that. I'm only going to get marks for identifying a language feature. I want to get marks for explaining how the writer uses that language feature to describe the effects of the weather. So this is how I've done this. So I've started with my point sentence. So I've said, the writer makes use of language features and techniques to describe the effects of the weather on the coach. I've then gone on to draw out the evidence. I say, they compare the coach itself, affected by the winds, to a drunken man staggering. And I'll give a little quote there. The whole body of the coach trembled and swayed, rocking between the high wheels like a drunken man. So there's my evidence. So we've got our point. Got our evidence. And this is my technique. So this is my identification of the language technique. So I've said this is an example of a simile, drawing a comparison between the coach and the drunkard. Now, this is where you can start to get extra marks, because sometimes a simile or a metaphor will also be another technique. In this case, it's personification, because it's given the coach characteristics of a person. So I've drawn that out as well. I've also said it's also an example of personification, as it gives the coach characteristics of a person. So I'm now explaining why this technique was used. So I've said it works well because the simile brings up images of a drunkard and we can picture in our minds how it might lurch from side to side. So instead of the writer basically saying, it's lurching from side to side, which is a bit boring, they've compared it to a drunkard. I've then explained how the personification works. I've said the personification also makes it seem like the coach is rebelling against the driver, like the wind has given it a mind of its own. So that's our explain bit. Now this is the bit we get the extra marks for, and that's the effect it has on the reader. So, the reader gets a real sense of discomfort from this passage, as it gives the reader a sense that because of the terrible weather, the coach is moving about, possibly dangerously, beneath them. And that is how you construct a Peter paragraph, identifying and drawing out on a language technique.